Hello and welcome to the budget debate. How do India's top politicians respond to Mr. Chidambaram's budget, and do they believe it sends the right message to handle the critical economic situation we face? That's with the Minister for Communication and Information Technology, Kapil Sibal, the leader of the opposition in the Rajya Sabha, BJP's Arun Jaitley, and CPM Rajya Sabha leader and senior Politburo member, Sitaram Yechuri. Gentlemen, let's start with the big picture. The finance minister began his budget speech by saying that the Indian economy is challenged. Arun Jaitley, is today's budget an adequate response to that challenge?
Well, I don't think it's an adequate response. The finance minister and the UPA had pushed the economy into a corner, and therefore, given this helpless situation, the best argument that can be said in his favor is he was faced with this helpless situation, he had very little elbow space, and therefore he did a little of what he could.
Kapil Sibal, how do you respond to that? He did a little of what he could, but nowhere near enough.
Well, quite frankly, that the helpless situation is not of our making. We are in a global economy where there is a downturn. We've had an average growth rate of 8% over the years, but at the same time, the situation is very challenged. The economy is challenged. The savings rate has gone down. Investments are not coming into the country. It's partly because of the global economy and partly because of the investment climate at home. So in these circumstances, he had to within the constraints that he was faced with, I think he has given a very sensible, practical budget to the people of this country.
Sitaram Yechuri, the left response to the challenge the economy faces is bound to be very different to the BJP or the Congress's response. So let me begin by asking you, what do you think the finance minister should have done instead of what he has done?
Well, I think what he should have done was to have concentrated on expanding your aggregate demand within our country. Given the global slowdown, it's very clear that you cannot depend on growth based on exports. World trade is shrinking. In that situation, only way to grow here and make it more inclusive is to expand your domestic demand through a massive doses of public investments, for which, according to me, this budget document itself shows you there are enough funds available. Instead of that, the budget has actually contracted real expenditures, reduced subsidies for the poor, which only means contracting the purchasing power further.
All right. Gentlemen,
and this is going to decelerate the economy.
Gentlemen, let's now move to specifics. To begin with Arun Jaitley, the finance minister in his press conference this afternoon said that the main message to the world is that the fiscal deficit will be contained. Now, do you believe he's actually brought down the fiscal deficit of the year that's ending to 5.2%, or has he only deferred subsidy payments and tax refunds beyond April the 1st? In other words, has he done it by sleight of hand?
Well, I think it's an optical exercise for more than one reason. The tax buoyancy last year obviously has come down. The growth rates have come down, and therefore some element of current account deficit has increased because of that. The fiscal deficit has increased because of that. Now, to contain that, last year, and this is what he categorically said when he took over again in August, since September, he's been handling this situation. He's brought down public spending hugely. In fact, over 90,000 crores on capital expenditure, as the budget documents itself would indicate. Additionally, many finance ministers in February and March have also deferred payments. Now, when the fine print of this is seriously analyzed over the next 2-3 days, I think that factor would additionally come out. But there are, in the expenditure budget, if you compare item by item, a series of items where there is a substantial reduction in the actual expenditure because you wanted the fiscal deficit to become at least optically acceptable.
And so you're saying there is evidence in the expenditure budget where payments that should have been made this year have been deferred beyond April the 1st to make the fiscal deficit optically acceptable? Not
necessarily deferment, but payments or the projects itself has been reduced. I'll give you an example. An infrastructure project for villages, Pradhan Mantri Gram Sadak Yojana, over 20,000 crores is allocated. What is spent this year is only 8,100 crores.
Okay.
So you save 14,000 crores. That helps you in bringing down fiscal deficit.
Now,
And
Sitaram,
I can give you similar illustrations in several cases. Subsidies is another example.
Sitaram Yechuri, what about the 4.8% fiscal deficit that he set for this year? He's predicated this budget that he's now announced on GDP growth of around 6.4%, which many believe is unlikely. He's projected tax revenue growth to 19%, which most people think is impossible, and expenditure growth to 30%, which is perhaps whopping. Yet he's still insisting that he can bring the fiscal deficit in at 4.8%. Do you believe him?
I find it very difficult to believe him, and I think Arun and I will both have to brace ourselves, because the supplementary grants proposal will surely come before the Parliament very soon, because it's impossible to sustain such high levels of tax buoyancy. I don't know on what basis is calculated that. And the slash in expenditures that he has went in, I mean, this is how he has managed to show a containment of fiscal deficit, a projection of tax buoyancy which is unrealistic, and a squeezing consumption, and subsidies have been squeezed to the extent of 27,000 crores.
Okay.
And on top of that, petroleum subsidy by another 30,000 crores, because the diesel prices are going to increase. That has been very clear now. Now, what are you doing? You are actually contracting your consumption power in the hands of our people. Now, the fiscal deficit, one second.
Before you come to what the consequences of this is, would you therefore agree that the 4.8% projected fiscal deficit for the year that's going to begin on the 1st of April is unrealistic and unachievable? A quick answer to that.
No, it can be achieved if you contract expenditures even further. That means spreading misery much further and much deeper in the country. So it's possible to achieve it, but at what expense?
Let me put that point.
The poor.
Let me put that point to Kapil Sibal, and the reason why, Kapil Sibal, people suspect the maths and believe that perhaps you're going to have to achieve that 4.8% figure by further desperately and savagely cutting expenditure is because when you look at the petroleum subsidy that is budgeted this year, it's only at 60,000 crore, whereas the REs for the year that's ended was 95,000 crore. So either the finance minister expects that petrol prices are going to fall drastically, which is unlikely, or he's going to resort to savage cutting of expenditure, as Sitaram Yechuri says is likely. So what's your explanation for this?
Well, the explanation is quite clear. First of all, on the 5.2 fiscal deficit, the numbers show that it is 5.2. There is no sleight of hand. There are no optics involved with. That is the reality. There are under many schemes, funds were not spent in the previous year, and therefore that money is available to us. As far as the future is concerned, we have to rationalize subsidies. There is absolutely no doubt about it, and there is no other way. The fact of the matter is that the subsidy bill today is 2,31,000 crores. No country can afford that. So if you add the petroleum subsidy, the food subsidy, the fertilizer subsidy, it all comes to 2,31,000 crores.
Can I interrupt?
How can any country afford that?
Can I interrupt and put this to you? Are you therefore saying to me that, in fact, the oil subsidy, just to pick that one subsidy, the petroleum subsidy, is going to fall by 35,000 crore next year? Because that is what the finance minister's figures indicate.
No, but I'm saying, but first of all, there are other ways of raising revenue. You doubt the fact that revenues will increase by 19%. I don't doubt it at all in the worst of years. Okay. For example, revenue last year increased by 16.75%. So the revenues are buoyant, and with the kind of measures that he has put in terms of changing the investment climate, reforms in the capital market, the SME, MSME sector, the reforms in the MSME sector, all these reforms are going to pay a huge dividend. The savings rate is going to go up because he's allowing people who are buying their first homes, he's allowing them a benefit of 2.5 crores.
I think you made your point that you believe that the finance minister will meet 4.8. Let's then shift, Arun Jaitley, to growth. Because if the 4.8 figure is going to be met, as at least Sitaram Yechuri suspects, by savage cutting of expenditure, just as happened this year you pointed out he cut 95,000 crore of expenditure. If something similar happens next year, then it will be very difficult for the finance minister to achieve his leave aside 6.4% growth, particularly because Q3 has already come in at 4.5%. So do you think that not just the fiscal deficit figure, but the growth figure of the budget is also suspect.
You see, I have reason to believe that the growth figure is a suspect. Because for the growth figure to increase, at this stage, a lot of public spending has to increase. Additionally, you have to create an environment where we are able to attract investment, both domestic and international. Now, for the last few years, we've been saying, forget about foreign investment coming into this country. Even domestic investment is flowing out. People are looking for projects outside. There is a policy paralysis. Projects which are ongoing have been held up. They were held up for various reasons. And then we've been told for the last 1 year that the National Investment Board is going to be created. Somebody objected, it's not being created. So you have umpteen number of projects which have been held up. And therefore, in such an environment, to sustain the 6.1 to 6.7% growth rate, I'll be very happy as a good Indian if that were to happen. But I have my lurking suspicion it may not happen. Additionally, on a lot of areas where you have to give an emphasis, infrastructure, for instance. Now, what is the situation of the highways? To say that in the next 6 months we are going to clear 3,000 kilometers, but last year you've done a few hundred kilometers of highways. Therefore, infrastructure projects itself have been delayed. Rural roads, I have said, is almost 40% of what you had targeted. Nothing seems to be happening in the infrastructure programs in areas like the Northeast. And therefore, if public spending and private investment in this country, the environment doesn't change, how do you go back to that 6.5% plus growth rate?
Let me put that central key core concern to Kapil Sibal before I go back to Sitaram Yechuri. Kapil Sibal, today, according to analysts, there is some 7 lakh crore worth of projects that are stalled because they are awaiting 1 or more clearances. And although the government has set up a cabinet committee on investments, it was actually set up 4 months ago and it hasn't cleared any substantial number of projects. And now, if there's going to be a push in this budget for infrastructure growth, you simply could end up adding to the number of projects that are stalled. And that's not going to help growth. That's simply going to add to the backlog of projects that are holding up growth.
This is why the budget that the finance minister has presented is in a sense investment oriented. Look at the allowances that he is given for foreign investment for over 100 crores. There's going to be a 15% tax allowance on that. Look at what he's doing in the MSME sector.
But forgive me, you're missing the point.
The point.
How do you clear up the backlog of projects that are stalled? That's the problem. That's what's holding up growth.
There is a cabinet committee on investment which is meeting. It has already met twice. It's going to meet again very soon, and we're going to clear the projects. That's a commitment we have made to the people of this country.
Except that cabinet committee was set up 4 months ago, and it hasn't delivered very much since October.
We have met twice already, and all these things take a bit of time. We'll clear all the projects. And as far as infrastructure is concerned, I want to ask my good friend, both my good friends, that look, in the 11th five-year plan, as far as the power sector is concerned, we added 54,000 crores. The last year we added 20,000 crores,
forgive me.
which is the total of the 10th plan.
Oh, but you brought up a very interesting point. Of the 54,000 megawatts of power that you added in the last five-year plan, the vast majority, probably 50,000 megawatts, is lying idle because of non-supply of coal. That's one of the problems that's holding up development.
18,000 crores worth of megawatt power, and that also because of the kind of noises that have been raised at every stage, not allowing the economy to function properly. Investments have come down. Why? Because the opposition is saying that everybody is a scamster here. If the opposition doesn't play ball and doesn't think in terms of what should be happening, and they should be also attracting foreign investment, if you yourself say that everybody here is a scamster, where are you going to get foreign investment? The serious situation that we are in.
I won't deny the fact that there's a certain amount of opposition obstruction that has held up development and stopped projects being cleared, but you can't blame it entirely on them. Let me, in the meantime, bring in Sitaram Yechuri. No, let me.
We have to work together.
Let me bring in Sitaram Yechuri and point this out. This budget, in trying to push for what some consider that illusory figure of 6 to 6.7% growth, has put a lot of emphasis on infrastructure, which is something you strongly recommended in your article in the Hindustan Times on the 20th of this month. So do you at least support and commend that element of the budget? Because that's doing exactly what you recommended.
No, but you see, seeking investments in infrastructure is a different thing from actually mobilizing resources to do that. No, in the same article that you refer to, I also suggested, and this year's figures are much worse. What did I say? Your fiscal deficit of 5.2, you said is 5,20,000 odd crores. The total amount of tax foregone this year, this year's budget, you have said is 5,73,000 crores. 53,000 crores more than the entire fiscal deficit. Now, what are these tax foregone? Concessions to the rich?
Hang on.
If
Can
those
I
are not
interrupt?
subsidies- Hang on,
This is a pet point of the left, but that tax foregone is actually being done as a way of an incentive to increase investment and to increase production. Without it, the figures would have been much worse.
I'm coming to it. And what is the net result of these incentives? 5,73,000 crore you give, and your manufacturing drops from 6% to 0.1% or even less. No, instead of that, collect these taxes and government invest in infrastructure. You'll create jobs. You'll enlarge domestic demand, and you'll put the economy on a more sustainable growth trajectory.
So the bottom line is you're not impressed by the emphasis on infrastructure, even though that's something you yourself had endorsed in your article in the Hindustan Times. You're not impressed.
There's no resources to back it up. No resources to back it up.
In other words, it's just empty rhetoric. Gentlemen, let's take a break at that point. When we come back, we're going to turn to two other aspects that the finance minister gave great emphasis to. The need to attract foreign investment. Will it actually happen? And the emphasis also on domestic taxation, as well as in particular charges increasing taxation for those who are considered to be super rich. See you in a moment's time after the break. Welcome back to this special budget debate. Gentlemen, let's come to the question, has the finance minister done enough to attract foreign direct investment? Arun Jaitley, he said foreign investment is an imperative. He added that we need $75 billion to finance the current account deficit. And admittedly, GAAR has been postponed till 2016. But the Vodafone and retrospective amendment tax problem continues. It's still unresolved. And many people this evening think that he's perhaps created a new problem in terms of doubt about the Mauritius route for investment. So instead of encouraging investment, has he once again sent out a set of mixed signals in your eyes?
You see, even though we have differences with the government about the sectors in which foreign direct investment is to be invited or not, conceptually we are not against the concept of an FDI. It's an additionality of resource. And in a deficit economy, certainly you require that resource. But to get that resource, your domestic environment has to be a one which attracts that resource. So if there is inconsistency of policy, if there are frequent changes in tax structures, alternatively, if there are serious allegations of corruption. Now, Kapil Bench held us responsible for highlighting the scams. The answer is scams must not happen. Now, we are not responsible for 2G. We are not responsible for what happened in Commonwealth Games. We are not responsible for the coal allocations. Now, these are cases in which their own government and the CBI has found something highly improper and filed cases. So if you create an environment of this kind, in this environment, even though you may increase the sectoral caps, people will invest only when there is a conducive environment, when there is a sure environment.
Can I stop you?
I think it's the responsibility of the government. Yeah.
Can I ask you this? So do you think he should have bitten the bullet when it comes to Vodafone? After all, the Vodafone issue and that retrospective tax amendment issue was announced by the last finance minister in his last budget. Should this finance minister in this budget have cleared it up rather than keep completely silent?
Well, that's a matter where he has to take a policy decision. He has to take a call along with the Prime Minister. It's a problem which the present government created. It's a problem which the government is to resolve.
Sitaram Yechuri, when it comes to direct taxes or when it comes to excise duty and customs, there have been no real changes, although there's been a fair amount of tinkering around. But there has been a 10% surcharge on those earning over 1 crore a year, and it's for just 1 year. Is that one specific proposal that you A, endorse, and B, wish becomes permanent rather than just a 1 year thing?
A, I wish what you said is true. It is not a 10% surcharge on earning more than 1 crore a year. It's a 10% surcharge on the tax that you pay on your earnings of more than 1 crore a year. So it's only a marginal 10% of the tax amount that is being paid. I wish it was the other way around like you suggested, and for a longer period, because
Okay.
I think universally all over the world, France, I mean, Hollande won the election on this
Absolutely.
aspect, and Obama is doing the same in the
All right.
USA.
Let me bring
I
it.
think universally this has been the trend.
You made that point very clearly. The United States has done it, France has done it, India should do it more firmly. Kapil Sibal, on the other hand, although the finance minister said that DTC will be tabled before the end of the session, he had no roadmap to offer on GST, just an expression of hope. He said nothing about pension and insurance, which have been stalled in Parliament. He said nothing about land acquisition, which is also stuck in Parliament. So on those critical reforms that many believe would fire up animal spirits and inspire confidence investors, has he fallen sadly short?
No, I think as far as the GST is concerned, in fact, looking at the minutes of the meeting of the ministers presided over by Sushil Modi, he has said he's taken those minutes into account, and to show the commitment of the central government, set apart 9,000 crores for partial payment of what is going to have to be paid to the states for losing out on the CST. So, in a sense, the central government has shown its commitment, and he's hoped, and he said on the floor of the House that by October, November, he expects that all this should be resolved. And this is a major thing. As far as the tax code is concerned, I think that if the opposition plays ball, we'll have the tax code in place. That shouldn't be a problem.
Okay.
On the insurance again, I think again, as far as the government is concerned, we are ready to deal with the insurance issue.
Well, you don't have a majority in the House, and you need to therefore find more active ways of reaching out to the opposition to get that majority. That isn't happening.
That's precisely why I said that we need the support of the opposition, because the need of the hour is to look at the needs of the country.
But you have to earn it, Kapil Sibal, in terms of what you offer, not request it and simply hope to get it.
Karan, if you please allow me to speak, maybe I'll be able to persuade at least Arun Jaitley on the other side. The question, what do you mean by earning? We are saying that let's sit around the table and let's resolve the issue, and I think some resolution is in the offing.
All right.
I think it should move forward. As far as one second,
we're out of time. We're out of time. We're out of time. We're out of time.
1 second. The opposition has a right to raise those issues, but the opposition cannot create an environment in this country that the whole economy is run by scamsters.
All right.
And this is why foreign investment doesn't come in.
I'm going to pluck from that long answer of yours the hope that you can sit around a table and reach consensus and push through reforms that will inspire confidence and restore animal spirits. That's a hope that we could all keep our fingers crossed will be actually realized. My thanks to all three of my guests for joining me. And if you have been, thanks for watching. Goodbye. Good night.